All right, guys, welcome to your first hymn workout. And I know you're probably still skeptical. You're thinking to yourself, am I really going to meditate on a hymn? Is that going to do anything for me? And I want to just tell you again, yes, it can be life-changing. It can actually transform some of your spiritual disciplines. And just to help you understand what we're trying to do here, this is a workbook. It's actually a fantastic discipleship workbook, but so much of discipleship, does it not feel like you're just going through a workbook? And it's like it doesn't really engage much of us. Now, what we're trying to do is not just do a workbook. Guys, look at this. It's a kettlebell, right? And the point of the kettlebell is it's not a workbook. You use a kettlebell to work out. And this first hymn, what I want you to think about is don't go into this hymn thinking that this is a workbook activity. This is meant to be a spiritual workout. This is meant to exert your mind, exert your memory, exert your imagination, your attention. And if you go into it like a workout, not a workbook, you're going to get a different set of outcomes. So let's start with just a problem. And I know you're going to identify with this problem. The problem is, how do you work up a sense of awe? Is it not difficult to reach a place where you are amazed and even silenced by the grandeur of God? We all struggle with this. And so this first hymn, it's an old hymn by someone called Isaac Watts, but if you're looking for a script to help you work up a sense of awe, guys, this is what you need. So I'm going to read this, and as I read it, I'm going to take you through a series of motions, a series of activities that you can pause and you can do on your own. And my goal here is to teach you how do you use a hymn as a spiritual workout. So let me just start. Here's the first stanza. It says, "Eternal power whose high abode becomes the grandeur of a God. Infinite lengths beyond the bounds where stars revolve their little rounds." You didn't follow that, but that's okay. What this does is it starts out and pushes us to imagine something. It asks a question. It says, what is that place that's actually fitting for the glory of God? Can you imagine what it would be like to step into heaven? And what this hymn does is it pushes us beyond the stars. We're having to imagine a place that is actually worthy of the holy presence of God. Now it's going to take us there. Let me move to the next stanza. "The lowest step above your feet rises too high for Gabriel's feet. In vain the tall archangel tries to reach the height with wondering eyes." Now here's the picture. The angels, as great as they are, aren't able to step and approach this glorious God that we worship. And so even as Gabriel looks up with his wondering eyes, he can't take in the fullness of who God is. Pause there. This is where you actually should stop and think, what would it be like to be before the throne of God, to look into what the scriptures call inaccessible light, to be in the presence of the one who the seraphim, they cover their eyes and say, "Holy, holy, holy." Let your imagination take you to that place, to the throne room of God. Well, guess what? We get the response in the next stanza. "Lord, what shall earth and ashes do? We would adore our Maker too. From sin and dust to thee we cry, the great, the holy, and the high." Now, guys, whenever you get an actual glimpse of God's holiness, whenever you encounter that glorious presence, the only question is, how on earth can I worship this? You stammer because you don't have the words, and then you're aware of your own sin. The question is, how can you worship a God who's so worthy of our worship? And again, that's the question. That's the problem that this hymn is encapsulating. And let me just read the next stanza. It says, "Earth from afar has heard thy fame. Worms have learned to lisp thy name. But oh, the glories of your mind leave all our soaring thoughts behind." When you read one of these hymns, you're looking for that golden nugget. And guys, this is one of those nuggets. "But oh, the glories of your mind leave all our soaring thoughts behind." Just picture God's glory and, our thoughts trying to reach it, and they just fall short every single time. We can't fit into our skull thoughts that adequately represent who God is. And that's what we need to realize. That's what we need to recover. That kind of awe and wonder that God is so much greater than any box we would try to fit him within. Now, here's the last stanza. Listen to what it says. God is in heaven and men below. Be short our tunes, our words be few. A sacred reverence checks our songs, and praise sits silent on our tongues. What this is saying is when you realize the glorious God that heaven cannot even contain, the response that we ultimately have is not even to say anything at all, but simply as it says, praise sits silent on our tongues. Sometimes silence is the best form of worship. So guys, if this is a workout, what this hymn will do first, it'll help you think about the holiness of God, how other and how higher he is than any thought or conception you've had of him. He's always greater than we can imagine or think. However, it'll also challenge you to actually reach that place where you sit silently in the presence of God. There's your workout. When's the last time that you have lied down on the floor, face down, and just been still in the presence of a holy God that even the angels can't fully behold? Guys, we need to do this. We need to live with a sense of reverence. And so take this hymn, and what you should do is meditate on its words, but don't just think. By the time you get to the end, and you realize that sometimes praise is best silence before God, you get quiet, lie down, face first, and you just imagine yourself in God's presence and just sit there for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes and just realize how amazing it is to exist in the presence of an awesome God all of the time. There's your workout.